Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler Season 1 Episode 50, the towering mountain which seemed frighteningly realistic, was forcibly tossed up from the ground. It soared across the sky and emitted out such heavy fluctuations of force that it caused the earth below to fracture. When it reached him, it enveloped Mu Chen and fiercely suppressed him. As the mountain descended, the air within the world seemed to let out the sound of compressed explosions. An enormous arc of air swirled together into a circular shape underneath the mountain. Mu Feng and the others watched this attack and could not help but gulp. Their scalps began to feel a little numb. If the mountain descended down, at least half of the city would be destroyed. The destructive power that a heavenly fusion stage possessed was too far beyond that of the spirit stage. I wonder if Mu Chen can defend against this attack. Mu Feng and the others stared worriedly at the thin figure of the boy in the sky. Underneath the massive mountain, he was tiny, just like an ant. Under countless gazes, Mu Chen slowly spat out white air. A hint of seriousness flashed through his eyes, which had a black flame burning inside of them. His hands suddenly formed a few mysterious seals. As his hands were changing between the seals, a dense, dark black, spiritual energy was gathering in the center of his palm. In a couple of seconds, the dark black spiritual energy had formed into two black seals which were approximately 3 meters tall. These black seals naturally came from the Limitless death seals that Mu Chen had trained in. But the Limitless death seals he had condensed at his current level were many times stronger than before. Even after Mu Chen had condensed 2 Limitless death seals, he did not stop. Instead, he continued on. From the center of his palm, dark black spiritual energy gathered once again. As the spiritual energy gushed in and out, a seal of black light emerged once again. The third Limitless death seal. Mu Chen stared at the third Limitless death seal, which emitted an extraordinary spiritual energy pressure. However, his eyes were still flashing as he continued to change seals. Another dark black light ring emitted out endlessly from the center of his palm. Rumble. The fluctuations from the dark black light ring seemed to emit muffled sounds of spiritual aura as they collided with each other. Then the black light ring shrank within Mu Chen's palm as if it was going to become yet another dark black light seal soon. Mu Chen was actually attempting to condense a fourth Limitless death seal in one go. Although Mu Chen had always been training hard ever since he had obtained the Limitless death seal, he was never able to succeed in condensing the third Limitless death seal. However, this time, he relied on the Nine Netherworld Bird's power and finally completed it. He could feel how terrifying the backlash would be once he formed the fourth Limitless death seal. If it wasn't for Nine Netherworld Bird's domineering spiritual energy, coupled with the black flame's magical effect of being able to ignite spiritual energy, Mu Chen might have already destroyed his meridians during the backlash. 4 3-meter-tall Limitless death seals floated beside Mu Chen, and every one of them emitted a black light wave. It actually enveloped Mu Chen's surroundings within a range of dozens of meters. Inside this field, the air seemed to become distorted and would seem like a mysterious black hole if looked at from far away. As the 4 Limitless death seals emerged, Mu Chen took a deep breath and his eyes turned sharp. He waved his sleeves and formed a fist with his hand. Then he fired off a punch toward the mountain descending down at him. Bang! When the punch blasted out, an enormous sound rang out from the air. The 4 Limitless death seals trembled before shooting out with a swishing sound. The 4 Limitless death seals surged out in a straight line, and black light waves rippled over the place where they passed by. Looking from afar, it seemed that there truly was a black hole flashing across the sky. Every single one of the Limitless death seals was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they appeared beneath the mountain and fiercely collided with its base without any sign of stopping. Bang! As they collided with each other, an amazing shockwave of spiritual energy radiated outwards at a maddening pace. The first Limitless death seal soon shattered underneath the impact. How fragile! A cold sneer flashed across Liu Jingshan's face when he noticed this. Dong! But just when Liu Jingshan was about to sneer again, the second Limitless death seal, which contained overbearing spiritual energy that surpassed the first one, charged over. The black light waves quickly spread out, and the massive mountain shook violently as the speed of its descent began to slow down. The would-be sneer on Liu Jingshan's face turned ever so serious. Dong. The third limitless death seal followed closely. A black light imprint covered the base of the mountain. Then, an extremely overbearing energy emitted out and forcibly halted the mountain's descent. And just when the mountain was unable to descend down, the fourth limitless death seal rushed over. It quietly released the most terrifying energy out of all the previous attacks. Boom! A black light emerged from the bottom of the mountain. It was like the darkness that appeared in the sky after sunset. Underneath this black light, even the sunlight vanished. The entire world's colors seemed to have turned slightly dim at this moment. Dong. As numerous individuals watched in shock at the darkness that was radiating, a muffled sound rang out. Then the numerous eyes that were watching this scene narrowed. From the base of the mountain, a massive black beam pierced through the mountain like a pillar supporting the sky. In the end, it even penetrated through the peak of the mountain. It was a stupendously spectacular scene. How is this possible? Liu Jingshan's body trembled. As he trembled, a hint of doubt emerged in his eyes. He had already pushed his strength to such a degree, yet it was blocked by Mu Chen? In the city, Mu Feng and the others let out a sigh of relief. Buzz! At this moment, the black light beam expanded and affected the entire mountain. Finally, a loud bang rang out as the mountain was forcibly destroyed by the light beam before it faded away in the distance. The all-out attack by Liu Jingshan was perfectly defeated by Mu Chen like this. That bastard, Liu Qingtian, Liu Zong, and the others had a grim expression as they watched this scene occur in front of their eyes. Within their incredulous eyes, a hint of panic emerged. They never imagined that a boy who seemed insignificant in their eyes would suddenly possess such terrifying strength. Not even Liu Jingshan, who stepped into the heavenly fusion stage, could defeat him. In the sky, the black lights on Mu Chen's fingertips faded away slightly. He lifted his head and stared at Liu Jingshan, who was staring at him grimly from nearby. As they stared at each other, they actually did not attack again. It was evident that they could tell how powerful the other person was. To be able to corner me to this extent, you are quite amazing. Liu Jingshan stared at Mu Chen as he let out a deep breath. It was as if he wanted to let out all the grievance within his heart through this singular breath. However, his eyes remained cold and he warned, "Although I don't know where this power of yours appeared from, it ultimately does not belong to you. Therefore, you probably can't endure this power for a long time. On top of all that, you only have the strength of a spiritual rotation stage late phase. It's impossible for your body to endure this sort of power. Don't think that you can hide this from me. I'm not that blind." Mu Chen's eyes flashed. Liu Jingshan was indeed a heavenly fusion stage powerhouse. His keen eyesight was not something an ordinary person could compare with. As he continued to use the Nine Netherbird's power, his body started to show signs that it could not endure the power anymore. Under his clothes, a fine trail of blood had appeared on his skin. Fresh blood slid down from his body and dropped down from his fingertips. What the old geezer said is true. You can't endure it any longer. If you can't kill him, I'll advise you to immediately take your father and leave. The Nine Netherbird's cold thoughts resounded within Mu Chen's mind. Mu Chen curled his lips and nodded. I know. Liu Jingshan stared at the silent Mu Chen. However, he had a faint smile on his face. It was evident that he had spotted what Mu Chen feared he would. He waved his sleeves and said, "For my following moves, I only need to maintain a stalemate with you. Your strength will gradually become weaker, and when that happens, it will be all too easy for me to kill you." In the city, Mu Feng, Tang Shan, and the others quieted down. Although they didn't know what had happened to Mu Chen that made his strength swell, that power clearly did not belong to him. And regardless of how this power appeared from the outside, he did not possess the endurance of a true heavenly fusion stage like Liu Jingshan. Liu Qingtian and the others were relieved when they heard these words. They started to stare wickedly at Mu Chen. This boy is too mysterious. They must eliminate him. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to rest or eat in peace. In midair, Mu Chen stared at Liu Jingshan, who had a mocking expression on his face. He smiled and said, "As expected, the older you are, the wiser you become. Then what are you planning to do now?" Liu Jingshan smiled mockingly. He already knew Mu Chen's weakness. The latter currently possessed a heavenly fusion stage strength, but it wouldn't be enough to kill him. As long as he keeps dragging it on, Mu Chen will definitely die. "Everything will be fine so long as I kill you before I lose this power," Mu Chen smiled and replied. "Interesting. Another hint of seriousness flashed through Liu Jingshan's eyes as he retorted, "However, I'm afraid you aren't capable of doing that, even if you borrowed more external strength." Mu Chen directed an enigmatic smile towards Liu Jingshan. Then his eyes gradually turned cold before he closed them tightly. At the same time, his body retreated quickly. As he retreated, his fingers danced around. Then many individuals were becoming mere witnesses as spiritual seals began to emerge at a rapid pace from his fingertips before they floated around his surroundings. In a couple of seconds, Mu Chen's surroundings were filled with dazzling spiritual seals. The amount was nearly equal to 100 seals. In the city, there were a few spiritual array masters present. However, they started to gape as if they had seen a ghost when they saw the 100 seals dancing around Mu Chen. 100 spiritual seals? That is something which could only be done by an excellent rank 3 spiritual array master. Could it be that Mu Chen is going to arrange a rank 3 spiritual array? 100 spiritual seals? When the 100 spiritual seals emerged, sparkling like stars near Mu Chen, Liu Jingshan's face instantly changed. A hint of horror appeared within his eyes. Although he wasn't a spiritual array master, he had experienced numerous events within his lifetime. Naturally, he understood that a spiritual array which was arranged with 100 spiritual seals would be considered extremely powerful, even among rank 3 spiritual arrays. Once this level of spiritual array was arranged successfully, its power could truly tremble the heavens and shock the world. A rank 3 spiritual array. These words exited out from the gaps of Liu Jingshan's teeth. An extremely dense, murderous intent filled his eyes. This time, he was finally able to feel a small sense of danger from the situation. Although he did not know whether or not Mu Chen could really arrange a rank 3 spiritual array, there was no doubt that Mu Chen made him feel that it was possible for him to die. I must not let him arrange the spiritual array. The murderous intent within Liu Jingshan's heart surged out. Although a spiritual array of this level was extremely powerful once it was arranged, a spiritual array master still possesses a fatal weakness. That weakness is that it requires time for them to arrange a spiritual array. Moreover, they could not be overly disturbed during this period of time, and yet currently Mu Chen was actually daring enough to arrange a spiritual array during this fierce fight. In many people's eyes, it was an extremely foolish and desperate thing to do. Go to hell! At this moment, Liu Jingshan's face was extremely gloomy. He did not hesitate at all and turned into rainbow light as he charged towards Mu Chen. At the same time, he blasted both his fists out. Dense spiritual energy surged out and formed into numerous mountains as they fiercely suppressed Mu Chen. But facing Liu Jingshan's attack, Mu Chen's eyes remained tightly closed. A dark spiritual energy emitted out from his feet. Then, his figure instantly became blurry and brought forth numerous afterimages. While floating in the sky, he was dodging everything with a phantom-like speed. Boom! The giant mountains that were condensed from fist winds carried an extremely heavy and sharp spiritual energy as they charged towards Mu Chen. However, they failed to touch his body. What a fast speed! Seeing Mu Chen's phantom-like speed, Liu Jingshan was surprised and immediately gritted his teeth. Right now, it was evident that Mu Chen was planning to stall for time as he arranged the spiritual array. Therefore, all his concentration was placed on avoiding his attacks. But the more it was like this, the more he couldn't let Mu Chen succeed with it. Fish roaming, spiritual art. At this moment, Liu Jingshan's body trembled. His entire body seemed to have softened up, and he tore through the air with an alarming speed towards Mu Chen. Liu Jingshan's body looked extremely strange as he traveled across the sky. The scene looked like a fish swimming in the ocean. However, his speed was extraordinary. It was evident that he had used a movement spiritual art right now in order to catch up with Mu Chen's speed. Liu Jingshan's body quickly approached Mu Chen. A hint of seriousness flashed through his eyes and he formed claws with his hand. On his claw-like hands, violent spiritual energy flashed as he attempted to grab onto Mu Chen's throat. As the winds coming from the claws surged out, the air seemed to explode. But just when Liu Jingshan's air slashes were about to touch Mu Chen's body, the latter seemed to have perceived in advance, and his body shook. Numerous afterimages layered themselves on top of one another, and the winds from the claws passed through the afterimages. Damn it! Liu Jingshan's complexion changed. Not only were Mu Chen's movements strange, but more importantly, he seemed to be able to perceive his attacks in advance. He would instantly change trajectories when he perceived Liu Jingshan's attacks, causing the attacks to miss completely. I won't believe that you can keep dodging forever! Liu Jingshan gnashed his teeth and his attacks suddenly became even more ferocious. Sharp claw winds tore across the sky and overwhelmingly attacked Mu Chen. Facing Liu Jingshan's attacks, Mu Chen's figure turned even more phantom-like. His eyes remained closed, yet his body danced around like a leaf floating in a storm. He allowed the storm to do whatever it wanted, yet it would not tear him apart. As Mu Chen constantly evaded Liu Jingshan's attacks, everybody could see that the 100 spiritual seals had gradually integrated into the air. At that location, extraordinary spiritual energy fluctuations were being endlessly emitted. All the spiritual aura within the world seemed to be converging in that direction. Mu Feng and the others watched the scene nervously. Whether or not they could break through the dilemma today would depend on Mu Chen successfully arranging that spiritual array. The suffocating battle continued in the sky. However, as time passed by, everybody could tell that Liu Jingshan wasn't as calm as earlier. It was evident that he noticed he wouldn't be able to disturb Mu Chen if this continued on. The latter seemed to be separated from the world. Moreover, what was truly surprising everybody was that he could dodge Liu Jingshan's fierce offensive, even when he had shut off all interference from the outside world. All of this made people secretly wonder if the boy in front of them could accomplish this seemingly impossible matter. Swish! In the sky, Liu Jingshan had suddenly stopped moving. At this moment, his face was slightly distorted. The murderous intent within his eyes had condensed to the point that it was almost corporeal. He fixed his gaze on Mu Chen's phantom-like figure. Behind him, a dark color had already emerged. The air was distorted, and a massive diagram array was taking shape. It seemed that it was impossible for him to obstruct Mu Chen from completing the spiritual array. "Today, I'll see what you're made of." A shout filled with killing intent rang out from Liu Jingshan. He immediately retreated backwards. As he retreated, a dense spiritual energy surged out from his body. At that moment, an extremely strange fluctuation emitted from Liu Jingshan's body. Everybody directed their gaze over to Liu Jingshan. Then they were surprised to see that Liu Jingshan's body was swelling up rapidly. Black light completely covered the surface of his body. Liu Jingshan's clothes ripped as his body quickly swelled up. In a few seconds, he had actually discarded his human form and changed into a massive giant beast. It was a huge black hound. The two heads on the hound had hideous mouths filled with sharp fangs from which saliva dripped. As it appeared, even the air fluctuated a little bit. The huge black hound spat out a couple of breaths. One of its hideous mouths spewed out flames while the other mouth had black winds forming within it. An extremely evil fluctuation emitted endlessly as it rippled through the sky. Liu Jingshan had actually transformed into the spiritual beast soul essence that he ingested, double-headed hellhound. At this moment, numerous individuals' expressions changed. Even Mu Feng and the other territory lords took a deep breath. They were naturally aware that the double-headed hellhound that Liu Jingshan had transformed into was not an illusion. It was a double-headed hellhound that possessed its true strength and aura. So a heavenly fusion stage powerhouse could ingest a soul essence to such a degree. Mu Feng and the others' hearts trembled. Although all of them had ingested spiritual beast soul essences, they could only condense the spiritual beast soul essence using their spiritual energy at most. It was absolutely impossible for them to directly transform into a true spiritual beast like Liu Jingshan. Right now, Liu Jingshan not only possessed his original body strength, he also possessed the toughness and true ability of the double-headed hellhound. It was amazing to an extent that it was terrifying. Roar! The double-headed hellhound, which Liu Jingshan transformed into, roared at the sky. Within its scarlet eyes, a hint of fierceness emerged. Although he had changed into such a form right now, Liu Jingshan was still Liu Jingshan. He still possesses a clear rationality and would not behave like a spiritual beast just because of this change. However, this was truly a combination of a spiritual beast's tough body with a human's wisdom. It was only because of this that it was terrifying. Bang! The double-headed hellhound opened its hideous mouth. A fire dragon as well as a black storm erupted out. It was evident that this violent spiritual energy was many times more powerful and vicious compared to his human form. Mu Chen's body quickly brought out after images as he avoided the attacks. Although he managed to avoid being hit in a vital point, his clothes were ripped in half and he revealed his body covered with fresh blood. Roar! 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 The double-headed hellhound roared madly, and the spiritual aura within the world became violent. Under many horrified gazes, numerous fire dragons and black storms erupted out in the sky overwhelmingly. This time, It had enveloped the entire region's sky. It was impossible for Mu Chen to retreat. As they watched this scene, Mu Feng and the others' hearts were beating especially fast. Even their palms were covered with cold sweat. Rumble. The fire dragons and black winds were like ferocious beasts, and they revealed a hideous appearance as they charged towards Mu Chen. In the city, everybody immediately held their breath. They did not dare to even mutter a single word. The heat brought by the fire dragons had already caused the scraps of clothes on Mu Chen's body to turn into ashes as the fierce winds dispersed the ashes. This violent offensive was getting closer. But just when Mu Chen was about to be enveloped in the violent offensive, his tightly shut eyes opened up. Within his black eyes, a black flame arose. It was extremely mysterious. On Mu Chen's body, numerous bloody fissures began to crack and form. Fresh blood oozed out, yet Mu Chen remained motionless. His bloody hands slowly formed another seal as a hoarse voice rang out. Butchering demonic lotus spiritual array, activate. Buzz. When the final syllable was uttered, a strong black light erupted out from the space behind Mu Chen. Under many gazes, the black light extended and formed into an extremely complicated dark spiritual array. The light beams from the diagram array emitted out. They could vaguely see a mysterious black lotus slowly blooming. Numerous black lotus petals descended down and landed in front of Mu Chen. It allowed the flame dragons and black storms to bombard it as much as they wanted. Boom, boom, boom. Violent spiritual energy fluctuated crazily in the sky. However, when the flames and black winds dissipated away, everybody's eyes narrowed. This was because the black lotus petal that protected Mu Chen had remained unharmed. Next up, Mu Chen's hands trembled slightly, and he wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth. Even this minor action caused a tremendous amount of pain to him. His body had reached its limits in enduring the Nine Netherworld Bird's power. But it wasn't the time for him to fall now. Mu Chen's eyes, which had burning black flames in them, stared quietly at the distant double-headed hellhound. Then he immediately tapped the sky with his slender finger, which was covered with blood. Sounds of mutters rang out. It's time to slay the hound. When the voice faded away, the massive and mysterious black demonic lotus emitted a deathly wave of energy. That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.